Hello and welcome to South Bay Sports Radio. Here's your host, Nick Ingram.
Welcome into a very special episode of South Bay Sports Radio. Today I'm talking about something that's very near and dear to me. If you guys know me, you know that I love baseball, and I love old school baseball as well. And one of the players that I love is Roberto Clemente. We are talking today with the producer and director, Mr. Keith Ayers and David Altrogge, who are part of the Clemente documentary, now nominated for Best Outstanding Long-Form Documentary in Sports Emmys. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us, Nick.
All right. I want to know how you guys both got involved in this project and how long it took to get from the beginning to being ready to send it out to show it in theaters.
Yeah, so this was a 6-year labor of love independent film that we made, as the old saying goes, by hook or by crook, driven just by a love for the story of Clemente and what he represents. I don't think it would take any of us more than 3 seconds to find news that says there's a lot of bad in the world. And I think our team wanted to do a story about something or someone that reminds us there's a lot of good in the world too. And Clemente's story seems to be one of the stories in history that stands out as someone who lived his life for others. So I worked on the film for, I want to say, all of 3 years and just pushing. And we were kind of at a standstill. And that's when I called Keith and said, "Hey, Keith, I got this film I'm working on and we need some help getting it across the finish line." And Keith believed in the story. Keith, I'll let you tell from your perspective, but it was
David had an early cut of the film, and I loved it. I loved that cut, but I sort of knew what it could become with a few more interviews and a little bit more work. And we got it. We got the Lindor interview later. LeBron's team came on. We were able to do that. It's just been a story that's been sitting there for so long. And as you know, Nick, there hadn't been a formal feature documentary. There's never been a scripted movie about him. And stories like this, so my wife was born in Nicaragua, where he was flying to help during the earthquake. My in-laws were in the earthquake. My wife's name is Carolina, and he was born in Carolina, Puerto Rico. So it's one of those synergies in life that when David brought this to me, I'm like, this is something I have to do. And like he said, it's a story about someone that I knew a little bit about, but as you saw in the film, the personal moments of him with ordinary, regular people are just so special. And in this time where everything is so negative and there's such divisiveness, he brought an entire country and an entire city together, even though he didn't look like any of them. And it's just something that was so special. And I was so honored that David let me help him with it.
Yeah, and Nick, it was, and I think Keith, you'd probably say the same. We tried to make this film at a time that's really tough for the documentary market. And I'm so grateful for Keith and this whole army of people who just gathered around this story. Producers, and we had, producers from Texas who are on board, Mike Blizzard and Richard Linkletter. We had Keith and his business partner in LA on board. We had a whole team of people here in Pittsburgh from the Clemente Museum, Dwayne Reeder at the Clemente Museum, the Clemente family. It was all these people who gathered around this story and said, there's not a film here. There's not a story yet out there, not a film about Clemente, and we need to change that. And okay, it's a tough time for documentaries. Who cares? Let's make this, and we're going to get this thing out. And that's been it's just so cool to see that everyone come together, and then to see the response. People have just been so blown away by this film.
The amount of footage that you guys had, and I know Dwayne in the Clemente Museum, thank you for this shirt, by the way, ClementeMuseum.com.
Absolutely, yes.
How much footage did you have for this documentary, and how hard was it for you to cut it?
Oh man. Well, we had hundreds of hours of footage, and the editorial team just, incredible. They took hundreds of hours of footage, interviews. I I think we shot, well, Keith, when I showed you the cut, before we had Lindor, we had 50 hours of just interviews. And then that grew after, Keith, after you came on board and helped us get some other key interviews. But yeah, I mean, 50 hours of interviews, hundreds of hours of archival footage. And our editorial team, Elise and Chent, and some folks down in St. Louis called a place called Brutenstruby, came on board, and I kind of gave them an outline of what I wanted, and they dug in. And yeah, it was just a lot of different cuts. We'd watch it. I think we had a 4-hour initial cut that we had to figure out how to get into 90 minutes. And then we just, Keith would watch cut after cut, and our whole team would watch cut after cut. And that's the filmmaking process, trying to figure out, like, there's so much good stuff, like so many amazing stories that didn't make the cut. And it's just trying to figure out what are the moments that capture this man.
Was there a moment that you felt, of all the moments that didn't make the final cut, was there a moment that you felt had the chance to be in that final cut, or are there too many to list for that?
Well, I mean, Keith, if you want to talk about the Manny Sanguine story that we just couldn't, about him missing the funeral, I mean, that was when we just couldn't make it in the film.
Manny Sanguine, who to me was like, man, what a human embodiment of light.
Yeah.
It's like
Clemente's best friend,
and just lit you up.
Yeah.
He didn't attend Roberto's funeral because he was busy with scuba divers going to find his friend, because he didn't believe that he lost his friend. He said, I have to go find him. And if he's down there, he's alone. I need to go get him. It's just so heartbreaking.
Yeah. After the car crash, or the plane crash, excuse me.
Right. To David's credit, like, the fact that David is not a sports guy and a huge baseball guy, I think it helped, because what he cut ended up getting to the heart of who he was, which is why at the end, you get a lot of waterworks. I mean, somebody got up at the end of the film at South by Southwest at the screening and got up and got all choked up and said, this movie makes me want to be a better father, because I realize my time is short with my kids. And it's like, it's not the normal reaction that you get from a baseball movie, Nick. Like, we've had inspirational stories, but it was such a human story first. And the baseball, he's like an amazing human being who just happened to be one of the greatest baseball players of all time. And I think that's the lens that David saw it through, which is what makes it special.
Yeah. I mean, I think, we talked about this all the time, Keith. We knew that the baseball fans were going to love it, just based on the access to the footage we had from MLB. We knew they were going to love it. Our challenging goal was like, how can we make this so non-baseball people can watch it and just, like you said, Keith, be moved by this guy? He could have been a musician. He could have been a painter. He could have been all these things. And he was this amazing human who happened to be an amazing baseball player. So it's like, that was the balancing act of, like, making sure as we're editing it that we hit the high moments of the baseball, but also that we don't get so lost in the weeds of stats and individual games that we don't lose the audience who maybe they don't care about baseball, but man, when they hear his sons talking about what a great father he was, or they hear his wife Vera talking about what an amazing husband he was, or whatever, that they can really connect there.
Just so my listeners know, you're able to watch this movie on Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus, available for rent and to purchase.
Yep.
Be sure to do that so you guys understand the story that we're talking about.
Yep. And Nicholas, I gotta say, for all the old timers, all the boomers out there who want a DVD, you can go to clemente.film, www.clemente.film, and get this. You can get it on DVD. So if you love vintage, throwback, physical media, we got you covered.
I did hear something that DVDs are making a comeback in the new generation. So, and the same thing with albums and vinyl albums. So,
they are.
Things could change. You guys got a lot of interviews from Bob Costas, Dwayne Reeder, the Clemente boys, Vera Clemente. Of all of those, which of those interviews struck you as, I can't believe that this person is so open to talk about this subject?
Wow. I mean, I feel like everyone, I feel like the interview, it's like, how do you pick? Because I just feel like this film was so fated to happen. The interview that I think looking back, I'm like, oh my God, this was so lucky was with Vera, Roberto's wife. It was the last interview she ever did before she passed away. Dwayne at the Clemente Museum, one of the executive producers of the film, he said, "Hey, Vera's coming to town. She's got a crazy packed schedule, but I think we can get an interview with her." And so we went, and like, honestly, we were so early in the process. I had no idea. Like, I didn't know what questions to ask her. I didn't know where the film was going when we did it. And we just got so lucky. And honestly, our editor, Chent, and the story producer, Elise, they went in there and they found stuff I forgot we'd even captured, because the interview was done in Spanish. And I was doing the interview through a translator. So it was one of those interviews that was so crazy. She was in town. And so like I walked away and I wasn't even sure what we got. And then when they were digging through it, we had all these amazing moments. And to know that it was her last interview and to see the love she still had for her husband who had passed away almost 50 years before we did the interview, and to see the joy that talking about him still brought her. I mean, it was amazing. It was amazing.
I think that the interviews that got me were the regular fans, and specifically the fan that was playing catch outside of his house, and Roberto stops off and starts playing catch with him and then goes in and eats. And the young gal who he, obviously you'll see it in the movie, but they have a connection as well when she ends up driving him to the airport. Seeing what David just said about like the emotion and the love that they still had. He passed away, like, I'm 46 years old. He passed away 8 years before I was even born. And it was as if they were talking about someone that they lost yesterday.
Yeah.
That's how it felt. He couldn't even get through just talking about him without getting emotional. And that's the part of the movie that gets me every time.
We're talking people who met him one time and they were so impacted by him, and still they're brought to tears when they talk about him. Yeah. And there were
special. My wife actually had a funny quote, Nick, from the LA premiere, because she had already seen the movie in theaters about maybe 3 or 4 times, right? South by Southwest and in New York. And how many times you actually sit and see a movie 3, 4 times within a month. So we're about 45 minutes into the movie and she turns to me and she's like, "This movie is like Titanic." And I was like, I was like, "What?" She's like, "You start out the movie knowing he dies. You start out the movie knowing the ship is going to sink. That's immediately where your head goes. You're like, all right, it's going to sink."
Yeah.
And then it makes you fall in love with these two characters in Titanic. It makes you fall in love with Roberto. And by the time the last half hour hits, you're so in love with him and you're so in love with the story and his fans and his family that you almost forget that the ship is going to sink, right? And she's like, you just rip their guts out at the end, because for the people that knew him, like you said, David, they knew what happened to him, but they didn't know him. And I just thought that there was such a funny analogy.
Yeah.
Because it was kind of true. And I was like, I know what she meant is you fall in love with this man. And then obviously his tragic demise just way too short. And you feel it, to me, through the people that loved him.
Yeah. Yeah.
The story about the girl that took him to the airport, her name was Caroline.
Mm-hmm.
Carol.
Yeah. Caroline.
And
Carol.
that was something when I was going through the book, I kind of, you see all of these things that the author of the biography had put into the book, and all of the times that January 1st came up in his life.
Yeah.
But how big is it now for people who know that he's passed to live in a way where, you want to make this world a better place for other people? How big was that message for you when you're putting a documentary together about somebody who he's not alive, but his message still lives on?
Well, I mean, I think that was the thing that drew us to the story. Like I said, it was not the stats on the field. I'm not a baseball guy. I start talking about RBIs and batting averages and, who's on first or infield fly rule. I don't know what any of that means, but like When I was doing the research and reading these different books, hearing these stories of how he chose to use and live his life, his 38 years, and the ways that he actively sort of turned away from fame to pursue a life lived helping others and lived with just ordinary people. I think that's what just moved me so deeply. And I say it all the time. I think we need reminders that, man, we can do good in this world. There's a lot of darkness, a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, but we can do good. And he wasn't doing it for press opportunities. He wasn't doing it for PR. Most of the things he did in secret. People are still coming up to me that I've never met. And, they'll say, oh my gosh, I have this story about when I was a kid and I was sick, I was in the hospital and he showed up, or, there a special home for people in Pittsburgh with disabilities, and he'd go there. And these stories, I'm still hearing about them, and that I didn't know when we made the film. And it's like, I think we need more people like that. So I think that's my hope is that when people watch this, they're inspired to do it either in big or small ways, whatever way they can. If it's just carrying around a case of Gatorade in your car and handing it out to homeless people when you're driving around, or maybe it's something more significant. But it's like, I don't know. It's just, we need that more than ever, I think, right now.
There was just something so selfless about him, Nick. Like, I thought when I was younger that there was an earthquake in Puerto Rico and he went there. That's what I had always thought before we did the movie. And when I spoke to my father-in-law, who's born in Nicaragua, his reaction when I told him I was working on this movie was just so telling. He was like, Roberto Clemente? As if I was talking about a deity.
Right.
He's not from Nicaragua. He's from Puerto Rico, but he spent time there and was down there in the winter leagues and played ball. And my father-in-law had heard all the stories about him. And it's almost like a lore of like this great man that came down here to help the kids and play and give free tutorials and free, games where he would be there and throw out the pitch. Like, it's not just people in their little silos. Like, he's there to just help Puerto Ricans. It was like, no, it's what he did for Latinos throughout the whole country. And my wife is obviously Latino, and they're from Nicaragua, and they're like, he's special. And I think that a lot of Latinos from all countries of origin see what he did for them, and that's special in this world that we're in now of these silos of like my team, your team. And it was like, no, we should get what the white players are getting. And when somebody like Manny Sanguillen comes on his team, he brings him under his wing. And then you get a moment of, David shows the moment of vulnerability where he's like, I've been lonely. And you're like, oh. So it's not that Clemente was levitating above us. He was very human.
Yeah.
He was very difficult at times in his life, and difficult with the press and difficult with teammates and frustrated. And so he was very human.
Yeah.
And that's what, to David's point, we can all be like that and aspire to be like him.
Like we talked about with the interviews, you got the Lindor interview, and there were one of the Molina brothers you brought on as well.
Mm-hmm.
How fun were those guys to pick their brains about Clemente as well, knowing that they're from Puerto Rico?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think what's so cool about all those interviews is like baseball since Clemente played to now. I mean, the training methods available to athletes now, the amount, like back in Clemente's day, it was like a lot of guys, like most guys, they'd play baseball, and then in the off season they'd go, work in insurance, or, have these like crazy jobs. But like to see them like stand in awe of what Clemente did in the field, like now with everything they have available to them as professional athletes, the millions and millions of dollars that are put into the training of athletes today, they're still like, they just stand in awe of what Clemente was able to do on the field. 50 plus years ago. So that was just cool. It's just cool to see them like really kind of, when Clemente comes up, there's a reverence. There's a hush that comes across the room, especially among athletes. It's pretty cool.
It reminds me of Jordan a little bit, or locally like Kobe.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, there's great players. We talk about a lot of great NBA players, a lot of great baseball players. But when they talk about Kobe and you talk about Jordan, it's just at another level. It's almost like a whole generation doesn't remember. I mean, one of my favorite questions David asked is like, when did you first hear about Clemente? And Lindor was like, I mean, I don't remember a time when I didn't know about Clemente.
Yeah.
Like it's in your genes. He's number 12 because it's 21 backwards. Like,
yeah,
it's in their DNA and it's in their genes, and how lucky they feel that he was the trailblazer. There was like under 5% Latinos in Major League Baseball when he was playing, and now it's like 30-40% of the league.
Mm-hmm.
And they take for granted what he did, but when you bring up his name, they don't.
Yep.
It's still that irreverence of like, no, that's Roberto. That's a different level.
Yeah, totally.
The Clemente Museum has a ton of information, a ton of images. How big was Dwayne and his team in giving to this documentary?
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you brought that up. And really, like, anyone who is a Clemente fan, but just like a fan of baseball and baseball from that era, the Clemente Museum is like, it's like a church, man. Like, you go in there and it is just this most beautiful space you're ever going to be. I mean, Dwayne has created a monument to Clemente and baseball of that era. And they were huge. I mean, the film would not have happened without Dwayne and his team there, Rob and Zoe and CJ and, so many people, because they have the biggest archive of Clemente, memorabilia, photographs, film, and they were just so generous. They wanted to see this film happen, as much as, it's so many people we knocked on the door and got no's, and Dwayne and his team were yes right away. So it's, and again, they have such a huge, amazing collection. We go in there and we spent days just flipping through old, clippings and photo albums and these like, photos that you see that you can't even believe they're real. Like these just moments of him with his children or him, on a vacation or his wedding day, all these, they have the photo album from his wedding day, all these amazing things. And so there'd be no film without the Clemente Museum. And, like you said earlier, they got, they got great swag, and it all goes to continuing their mission of helping Clemente's legacy stay here in Pittsburgh. So get a shirt and come visit the museum because it is truly miraculous.
Yeah, those images were incredible.
Yeah. I mean,
he looks like a movie star.
Yeah.
Like it's like, and they're so authentic and so it rounds out who he was, and we couldn't have done it without him.
There's a story that we weren't able to make, that wasn't able to be in the film. But like early on when Clemente got here, he had some conversation with someone in the Pirates organization, and Dwayne at the museum would remember all the details. But he had a conversation with someone at the museum or at the Pirates organization when he first got here in '55. And they gave him just like, hey, here are some things to think about when you're being photographed. And I think he really embraced that and embodied that, like just having a sense of how the camera would capture him and portray him. And I think that was important because as a Black Latino player, I think he was really conscientious about how he showed up, even to the point of like being aware of cameras and how are they going to capture him, and making sure that he is presenting himself and in a way that shows who he is and kind of shows who he is on the inside. And I think that's really cool that he was just thinking in those terms of like, how can I show up in a way that I'm representing my fellow Puerto Ricans and my fellow Latinos and my fellow, Black players who are in a country that has marginalized them. I want to show up and show the world who we are.
It also leads to one of the funnier moments in the movie, Nick, when when the announcer is talking about his body. And it's like, could you imagine that now? Could you imagine a reporter being like,
So,
look at that waist and a 31-inch waist and that physique? And you're like, Jesus. It was a
it's
different time.
yeah, I mean, it's like it's a very
But like David said, there were players on the Pirates. Look at that. The best picture is that first picture of him, like the Where's Waldo? One of these things is not like the other. Some of these guys look like they sold insurance for a living.
Yeah.
And he was elite. The other thing that I love, because I'm originally from New York and now live in LA, is I'm a huge Derek Jeter fan. And people don't know is Jeter also, like Clemente, struggled early. He didn't just shoot out of a cannon and become elite. Roberto struggled and he needed a structure. And going to the Marines like he did and coming back, he needed to get physically stronger. So did Derek Jeter. And it's such a great underdog story because look, like we don't have to name the athletes, Nick. You know the athletes that you look at that you're like, well, that guy was born 7 feet tall, 300 pounds, or this guy was built like this way or that way. No, like Roberto's and the Jeter, like it shows like hard work and what can be accomplished with your mindset was just something that really struck me because you see comparisons with him with the other greats.
Totally.
For all of those that don't know, I love this story. Roberto Clemente was the first Rule 5 draft who was with the Dodgers. They hit him in the minor leagues in Canada with the Montreal Royals, selected by his former GM, Branch Rickey, to come to the Pirates, completely changed everything. So that's always something that I like to go with when I bring up Mr. Roberto Clemente, just from a baseball history standpoint. So this documentary, when it was said and done, what do we look at now as we're moving forward, as we're continuing to tell the story? Where do we go next?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's just continuing to look for and find the people that are giving of themselves to others. I think, we hear the word empathy thrown around a lot these days, but I think, where are the people who are, putting their empathy and love for others into action? And I think when you say, where do we go next? I think that's the place we always need to be going as a culture and a society, is like, how can we continue to put love and empathy and compassion and courage into action? And I mean, that's where it started for me, and that's where it ends for me. And there's no end to it because you spend your whole life trying to do that.
It's so true. And remember David at the New York premiere, Kid Miro? So Kid Miro finishes the film, Nick. He looks up and he's like, we teach kids like 9 and 10-year-olds, they have to learn all this like nonsense in school. They should be watching this.
Right.
It should be required viewing. It's like, you want to know how to be a good human being? Watch this movie and learn something. To me, it's about passing his legacy on to the younger generations. Like, my daughters are too young for it, but I can't wait to show this to them.
Yeah.
Especially knowing that's where grandma and grandpa were. They were in this earthquake. This man came to help them and did everything he could. In this age of like, everybody's so behind, the camera and no interaction. Like, this is a guy that stopped off to play catch with some kids. He didn't look at himself as special, even though he was very special. So I think for me, it's getting as many people as we can to see the film, but also just pass on his legacy and what he represents. Because so many people, like I said, I'm a huge sports fan, Nick, and I didn't know half these stories. I knew who he was. I'd heard of him, but there's so much there that I take with me in my life. And I think we can do that for lots of people.
Yep.
What does being nominated for a Sports Emmy mean for this project and preserving Mr. Clemente's legacy?
I mean, it's just rewarding because all of us worked on this film, like we said, for 6 years. None of us got paid. It was a true labor of love, true labor of passion. And So to see it nominated for an Emmy is just very gratifying, because I think we knew from the beginning how good this story could be, and to see like it's premiered at South by Southwest to rave reviews. It's played in theaters all across the country, to just audiences just kind of losing their minds over it. And so it's just rewarding to see, like, yeah, we knew how good this could be, and it's so cool to see audiences resounding with it and just like being deeply touched by it. And then to see, critics and the sports community and the filmmaking community embracing it with the Emmy nomination.
Yeah, it raises the profile. And in this era of, I mean, there are some documentaries now that are about, really small, minor things. There's so many documentaries. We're inundated with them. To have this rise above that and to raise the profile just helps more people see it.
Yeah.
And that's the big advantage. It's like I said to David, look, if we win the Emmy, it's amazing. It's so cool. But it's like just being nominated and taking out and being able to be in front of so many people just makes more people see it. It's also playing on airplanes now, Nick. And I actually just took a flight, and it was really cool to sit there and see it on an airplane. It's like that, as you know, Nick, that's not normal for most sports documentaries. You don't see it in theaters. You don't see it. It gets a streaming run and then it's gone.
Yeah.
And we hope that, every Clemente Day, this will come back, and it was able to play in Puerto Rico, which was also really cool. And just the messages, I said this to David early on with our social media, because you can also follow us on Facebook and on Instagram and TikTok. I said, David, if I posted about Jesus, you would get some idiots that'll say negative things about Jesus Christ, about Roberto Clemente. There have been 0 negative comments on social media. Nothing. It is all positive. It is all stories, like David said. Everyone has a personal story. I heard about this from my dad. I'm so glad I saw it. And it makes you feel good, because what's the point in telling stories if people don't feel something coming out of it? And watching people cry at the end of the movie and feel it. One of my daughter's friend's dads, who's in the neighborhood, he's like a big burly guy. He's in the LA premiere. He's crying like a baby. He walks out. He's like, God damn, you got me. And I'm like, that's amazing, because it means you felt something and you had an experience. And in the end of the day, that's why we do what we do, is to have an experience for an hour, 45 minutes. You get to feel something, you get to learn something, and hopefully pass it on to other people.
Yep.
Make sure you see the Clemente film, available on Apple TV Plus, on Amazon Prime. Leave a review. Let your people know that you really like this film and why you liked it. It's not just a film for baseball fans. It's a film for people that are willing to do something above and beyond the Call of Duty. Want to thank Barbara Yu for helping sponsor South Bay Sports Radio. Eli Lopez and his team are available 7 days a week. Check out styleseat.com or give the shop a call. They are located at 25690 Crenshaw Boulevard. For South Bay Sports Radio, I'm Nick Ingram, signing off.